everyone. So today I'm going to give you a crash course on how do I get the water out of my horn. These are tricks that and tips that I've gotten throughout the years trying to figure this out, and this is exactly what I teach my beginner students, intermediate and advanced kiddos on how to get the water, because it can be so frustrating sometimes. First thing, there are two different style wraps of horn, meaning how they're built. A lot of schools will purchase Conate D's, Holtons. I'm using a 6802 Hoyer. This is my horn. And all of these types of horns have a crusp or a crispy wrap, however you say it. And this is what it looks differently from the Gaia wrap, okay? So you might find a Gaia wrap horn like in schools if you're teaching on Yamaha horns, okay? The crusp or crispy wrap, you'll notice that the trigger, the thumb rotor, I usually call it the trigger. My thumb key is attached to my rotor. It is the closest to the performer, and it's not in alignment with the other rotors. And if you have a Gaia wrap, you'll notice that your thumb rotor is all the way at the bottom, acting as like the fourth rotor, and it is in alignment with the other three rotors, excuse me. And you'll also notice on the back, so on the crusp or crispy wrap, those Conate D's, Holtons, you have your top E flat slide and then your bottom F slide in two different places, opposite of each other. And the Gaia wrap is different. They have two slides, both at the top, okay? So that's important when we're finding out where the water is. The next important thing is knowing, because we need to use the trigger to get the water out, that there are two different sides of the French horn. There's the F side and the B flat side of the horn. I always tell my kids it's like two different instruments, a large instrument and a small instrument, got into a big car wreck, and then they couldn't pull themselves apart, and they created the French horn. So the F side of your horn is anything that you play without the trigger, no trigger. It is the bottom slide on this wrap, this style of horn. And it is, if you look at the front of your French horn, all of the longer, the bigger tubing. And I always try to think, okay, what instruments are larger? What instruments are an F, concert F? And I always think of tuba, trombone, euphonium. And that helps my kids think, okay, larger instruments, larger side of your horn, things that you don't use a trigger on. Things that you do use the trigger with, you press down, it activates the shorter part of your horn, and that's the B flat side of your horn, and it's my top main tuning slide right here. Think about smaller instruments. Those would be trumpet and clarinet. They're tinier, okay? So I'm activating a smaller part of my horn anytime I press the trigger down and use it, okay? So if you look at the front part of your slide, it's the back three slides, the smaller ones. All right, hope that makes sense. Now, how do we find the water? It's going to be most of the time in one of these three slides. I call it my water slide at the front, or in either of our B flat or F main tuning slides. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to not press anything down. I'm going to listen for my F slide and see if I hear that bubbling, crackling sound as I blow air into the instrument. I poured water into my horn, so please don't think that's all like spit. Ooh, so gross. Okay, so I blew water into my horn and I heard that crackling sound. I need to get rid of that. First thing that I tell my kids, make sure that your knees are spread apart. You want to put your instrument right between your legs, and I'll turn this so that you guys can see it. Make sure that these slides are facing the performer. Notice that my F side of my horn is between my legs, because when I take my slide out, I don't want to pour it on my neighbor's feet, and they think it's so gross, and ooh, watch out for each other. So this is just also a little classroom management thing. Don't pour it onto the side of each other just yet if you can manage it, all right? So I just tell my kids, you're just gonna gently pull and wiggle it down. It should be well greased. Otherwise, it's not gonna come down. That's really weird at that angle, all right? So I take it out in between my legs. I pour my water out. I promise that's not my water. And then I tell my kids, okay, put it back on your lap like it's a table, all right? Then gently tilt your slide in at an angle and wiggle it back and forth and slide it in gently until you have your slide in the correct place. And here's a quick pro tip. So I always make my kids measure their slides, how far it's pulled out or pushed in, on some part of their body that is not removable. Like, don't measure it with your fingernails. You can measure it with your pinky. I know that the width of my pinky is how far I want my B flat main tuning slide, or my F main tuning slide pulled out. So I'm gonna check, okay, is it there? All right, good. Now I can move to my next slide. All right, so now I'm gonna check and press my trigger down. Is there water in my B flat slide? Ooh, there is, all right? So I have my French horn in my lap, and I tell them that it's a steering wheel, and I'm gonna turn my steering wheel to the right, all right? So now I'm gonna place my bell on my left leg. It's just resting there. I'm always gripping when I take out slides, move my French horn, on parts of the horn that are not going to pull, are not going to fall. If I grab it, I wanna get very secure hand placements, okay? So I'm gonna use my water slide, gently pull it out, and then this is where I am on the right side of my leg. I'm just gonna turn it over, okay? Gently at an angle, bring it in, wiggle it back and forth, done. And then I'm going to do the same for my B flat slide. I gently pull it out, wiggle it back and forth. I'm always gonna turn my slides like I'm turning the doorknob to my left, okay? And then I go back at an angle, wiggle it back and forth. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure. Okay, this is 2 finger widths. That's what I use. Okay, done. Excellent. Now they're in the right place. If you teach your kids where their slides should go at the very beginning, I mean, it's gonna make your world so much easier. All right, but you still have 6 slides. Okay, how do we find that water? Where is it going? So if you look on the back 3rd valve slide, it's the shorter 3rd valve slide. This is the longest part of your horn. So gravity is gonna pull all the water down there. So aside from your water slide and your 2 main tuning slides, you'll have a lot of water here, okay? So what I'm gonna do, and since it's the smaller part of my horn, it's the B flat side, I'm gonna press trigger 2, 3 down, okay? And let's just hear if there's any water. Oh yeah, gravity has pulled all of that down. Okay, so I'm going to keep the whole time. Trigger 2, 3 down to avoid any back pressure because we don't want to launch slides, all right? So I'm going to gently wiggle back and forth my 3rd valve slide. Again, I'm going to turn to the left. I promise this isn't my water. Okay, I literally poured a cup of water in here. And then I'm going to go back out at an angle, wiggle it back in left and right until I make sure, yes, it's in the right spot, measuring it with some part of my body that is not going to change, okay? And then in these top 1, 2, 3, 1st, 2nd, 3rd valve sides, you're not gonna have a lot of water ever, really. So there's no reason why you should see kids pulling out the F slides, the top longer slides of their horn. There's no reason unless you're trying to re-grease it, or you're in like desperate mode and you've tried every trick in the book and nothing's happening and you just take everything out of your horn, okay? The back 1st and the back 2nd valve slide will collect more water. And how do you check if there's water there? Trigger, and I'm gonna check my 2nd valve side. So I press 2nd down. Okay, I didn't hear anything, good. How about trigger 1? I didn't hear anything there either. So I'm just gonna check again on open. No water sounds, press trigger down. I'm good there. Trigger 2, 3. Trigger 2. Trigger 1. 1 and 2. No water. I must be good to go. So hopefully this helps. This is just a really quick general where's the water. There are some other tips that can help as well. Just reach out to me if you're still having trouble. I'd love to help you out and figure out what's going on with your horn. But best of luck. Happy horn playing. Bye guys.